all have an animal inside of us, maybe a beast, a wolf, and Sonic is no different. In Sonic Unleashed, Sonic is given the ability to turn into a Werehog. It's an interesting direction to be sure, but is it one that paid off, or did we fly too close to the DeviantArt proverbial sun? Let's have a look. In 2008, Sonic Unleashed would capture the eyes of many Sonic fans, and at least from what I can gather, is looked at as kind of its own polarizing game. It didn't score that well among critics, but it seems to have found a cult following through loyal fans. Now, unironically for me, this story is just so much fun here. Nothing too deep, but it's an overall great ride from start to end. We open the game with some beautifully animated cutscenes that still hold up to today. I mean, look at the detail on Eggman here. They did not need to go this hard. We see Sonic and Eggman are up to their usual antics, however Eggman was able to trap Sonic on this contraption. It's a spaceship, right?
But it looks like a giant dick.
Yeah.
Take a look out of starboard.
Oh my god, it looks like a huge...
Pecker!
Oh, where?
Wait, that's not a woodpecker. It looks like someone's...
Private!
Eggman sends his giant beam down to Earth and it shatters. As it's doing so, this giant beast crawls up from the Earth's core, but it quickly dissipates. And honestly, I have no idea how anyone on this Earth is still alive. Eggman literally fucking blew it up to its core. How are you all so calm? Sonic has his awakening and succumbs to his persona. Sucked out into the vacuum of space, Sonic falls to the now shattered Earth. While Sonic's falling, something tries to catch him, but doesn't do a very good job. We meet this peculiar little character who has lost all of his memories. Before going off to help this little guy, we see that Sonic transforms back into regular form as the sun rises. So, he only transforms into a Werehog at night? Hey, that's just like a werewolf. Werehog. You get it? So to help our new little friend, we have to walk around town asking anyone and everyone if they know who he is. And by the way, his name is Chip now. So now we just kind of walk around and, excuse me, do you know Chip? Do you know? Sorry, are you familiar with Chip, ma'am? That's some really good gameplay right there. After rescuing Tails, we set off on our way to find Professor Pickle to seek clarification around what's going on with the Earth splitting and also what caused Sonic's transformation. The professor educates us on the Gaia manuscripts, which are scripts that document a terrible disaster that occurred tens of thousands of years ago. We learned that a creature was dormant in the Earth's core known as Dark Gaia. Eggman prematurely woke it up and it couldn't sustain its own weight, which is why it dissipates. Because Dark Gaia needs more time to develop, this gives our team some time to restore the Earth and find a way to seal Dark Gaia once again. But how do we do this? What do we use? It's the exact same thing as every other Sonic game, man, come on. It's the emeralds. Keen observers would have noticed that when Sonic transformed, the emeralds turned black. We need to visit all the temples listed in that Gaia manuscript to restore each Chaos Emeralds, and in turn, they will restore the planet. We put an emerald into a temple, the emerald is restored, and that section of the snapped off Earth gets reattached to the Earth's core. And there you have it, that's basically the game in a nutshell. Rinse and repeat until all pieces of the Earth have been restored, and that's kind of it. Now you might also be asking, why did Eggman wake up Dark Gaia? What is he doing?
The entity that was sealed within the planet has awakened. Now I just need to harness its power. Eggman Land will finally come to be.
That's it. It's not the best motive, but I don't know. Now, as you are making your way through the game and around the world, you do come across one temple where Chip gets sucked into a void and is referred to as a messenger of day, of light, of rebirth. Light? Kind of sounds like the opposite of dark. There's Dark Gaia. So is Chip Light Gaia? Yes. Yes, he is. Chip explains that he got his memories back and it was his job to protect the Earth against the destructive nature of Dark Gaia, and there's a yin and yang relationship between both Gaias, a cycle of destruction and restoration, a balance that must be maintained. As Eggman prematurely woke both Gaias, Dark Gaia could not support its own weight, and Light Gaia lost his memories. We make our way to the end of the game and the final showdown between you with Light Gaia trying to take down Dark Gaia. Now, in the most badass twist, all those temples we visited actually ended up being pieces to a giant ass Colossus. This really is some Voltron shit.
7 lights of the earth reach
Activate interlock. Dynatherms connected. Infracells up. Mega thrusters are go. Let's go, Ultron Force! Form feet and legs. Form arms and body. And I'll form the head.
All while this is happening, Dark Gaia is covering the world in darkness. Dark Gaia managed to cover the entire world and then turns into perfect Dark Gaia. This was what was meant to come out of the earth had Eggman not been so impatient. In kind of a oh shit we're fucked kind of moment, Sonic uses the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic to help take down perfect Dark Gaia. We do this in a sweet boss fight that really captures the severity of the situation and truly integrates Dark Gaia's hold on the world into the design language of the levels. You see these giant purple tendrils that Sonic is avoiding all throughout the level that really communicates just how much of an influence and hold Dark Gaia has. We get to control the Gaia Colossus and then we take out perfect Dark Gaia as Super Sonic. It was such a sick ending with a fantastic song, just high adrenaline, flashy family fun that you'd expect from a Sonic game. Oh sorry, did I say family fun? My bad. Sonic uses himself to fucking headshot Dark Gaia, killing him instantly. Fuck, what a good game. So as the game ends, we just kind of glue Earth back together. Sure, just like that. Sonic gets a sick new bracelet in the form of Chip's necklace, and then Sonic and Tails run off together for their next adventure. Now as this game was released in 2008, you might notice that it takes some inspirations from other games in the same time period where our protagonist gets a dark or beast-like version of themselves. Two that come to mind are Dark Jak in Jak 2 and Prince of Persia 2 Thrones. Now this isn't to say that this is a bad thing or it's unoriginal, because despite clearly taking the idea from other IPs, they actually do enough in this game to make it their own. Now the gameplay here is split up into three main parts. The first part are your traditional Sonic stages where you mix up both 2 and 3D levels to highlight his speed. And what a center speed it is. This is probably the fastest feeling Sonic I've played so far, tackling all of these 3D Sonic games. And I really think this comes down to the boost mechanic. You can go even faster in the daytime segments with a boost meter, and this grows with the rings that you collect. But in doing the boost, I can see the developers were faced with one of two outcomes or problems. Because you are going so fast, you can either take control of Sonic away from the player to make sure Sonic stays within the confines of the levels, or give players complete control and risk an unplayable mess. They do of course go with the former, so when you do use the boost function, you kind of absolve yourself of the control of the character. Sonic moves so fast within mostly tight confines of the levels, you just kind of let him do his thing. He also feels fairly slippery too, but it's in that way where the game kind of automates his movements and you kind of guide him along rather than it being a one-to-one feedback as seen in other Sonic games. Now I think in an attempt to give you control back in these sections, they give you a drift, and it's just not great. I appreciate this effort for sure, and it's a great idea to have you turn corners without losing momentum. However, it just needed more time in the oven to become a fully realized, fully formed idea. For the most part, Sonic controls fairly decently, but there were several moments of frustration, and ultimately this leads players to reducing the amount of times they use these provided mechanics in the game, which is a shame. Still sticking with the daytime stages here, the level designs were just fantastic. I found they feel a bit more restricted with slightly less path delineations than previous games, but this is not to say that it's lacking in creativity. There's a lot of diversity ranging in locales, from the flashing neon lights and platforming of Eggman Land to the expected snow, desert and jungle levels to doing a rooftop run in Spagonia. I thoroughly enjoyed most daytime levels with their shifting designs and aesthetics, and it was always exciting to see how new levels would change up the flow of gameplay and take advantage of the mechanics learned as your time as Sonic. Now moving into the second main part of the game are the Werehog stages. Obviously these take the speed away from Sonic and place a much larger emphasis on physical abilities like melee attacks, picking things up, throwing things, as well as some slower and more focused platforming. Levels are also designed in a way to emphasize this new style of gameplay too, with many ledges to hang from and kind of an open area where waves of enemies will come at you. Sonic's clearly been watching a lot of One Piece too, because he can also stretch out his arms. It's a weird choice, it doesn't really make much sense, but whatever, we'll move on. Now I for the most part did like these levels, as it did give the running levels a bit of a contrast. However, I felt like the developers missed the balance between the daytime and nighttime stages here. Daytime stages, or the ones where you speed through as normal Sonic, go for about 3 to 5 minutes max. There were some levels as the Werehog that dragged out for over 20 minutes. The content within these levels also weren't exceptionally exciting either, so that mixed with their long duration made them feel like a bit of a drag. It's super run-of-the-mill stuff here, with a variation of a light and heavy attack, standing on a button, pulling a lever, climbing block-shaped platforms. It's all stuff we've seen before, and frankly, it's been done much better by games that came out before this one. The game does try to change things up a little bit with the implementation of some light RPG mechanics, which I think are great. You can unlock speed stats, strength, more combos, among many other things, and both Sonic in his Hedgehog form and Werehog form get their own stats, so you can pick and choose how you invest into each. It was great to see that the game gives you at least some say in how either side of Sonic plays, and gives players control into what aspect they favour to some extent. However, it doesn't excuse the monotony or issues I found in the Werehog stages. Moving into that third section, and my least favourite, you get to walk around small towns based on whatever country or part of the world you're in, and you're able to find tokens here which go into unlocking additional content and levels, but to be completely honest with you guys, these sections just sucked. It feels like they're maybe trying to pay homage to the walking around hub worlds from Sonic Adventure 1, but the main difference with them was that in Sonic Adventure 1, there were actually interesting things to do in those hub worlds. In Unleashed, it's mostly just walking around, talking to boring NPCs and finding tokens. Sure, the hub designs do change, but their functionality doesn't. It feels like a complete afterthought, and most times the NPCs are just annoying to talk to. I never cared about them or what they had to say. Most of the areas too are just tiny, so there is no sense of exploration or wonder or intrigue or a sense of a functional town. So how was everything else in the game? How are the boss battles, the soundtrack, the enemies? What's with all these tokens? Well, while I did enjoy the game, it didn't really excel in any other departments other than the soundtrack. Sonic has always had a high standard when it comes to the soundtrack, and I'm happy to say that once again, this department has been kept at the insanely high standard you can come to expect. So many memorable songs fill each level, and there is such a variety to this soundtrack too. Unfortunately, the excelling kind of stops there. Boss fights, while some are cool, are mostly things we've just seen before. It really is all just run-of-the-mill standard Sonic by now. It's not bad, but it's not exceptional either. It's adequately enjoyable for the most parts, with interesting concepts and some fantastic moments that are sadly held back from realizing their true potential due to the game's shortcomings. Unfortunately, in those speed levels, Sonic handles really poorly and just feels quite slippery. The camera is also zoomed in so much that it's sometimes quite hard to see exactly what's coming up. This omission of information then makes those split decisions frustrating. Sometimes you might run into spikes or miss a different path because the game just does not give you enough information to make that decision. Now, if you are not fond of QuickTime events in here, you will not like this game because there are a lot of QTEs. You'll be racing, really feeling the momentum, and then bam, QTE. The screen slows down and you get a short period of time to complete this. If you screw it up, you fumble, which can sometimes prevent you from reaching a different path. It also can happen in boss fights too. Now, I don't mind them in boss fights, but I feel like they were really heavy-handed with their use when it's in both the racing segments and the boss fight segments. It was nothing that detracted too much from the experience, and clearly a product of its time where every game was inundated with QTEs in the early 2000s. But I just wish it wasn't such a prevalent mechanic here, but I guess that's hindsight for you. So all in all, this is a good Sonic game, but there are things that do hold it back from being one of the greats. I can totally understand why this game resonates with so many and why it has garnered a cult following, but I can't help shake the feeling that it could have really benefited from some minor tweaks to tighten everything up. Things like making the Werehog levels a little shorter, take out the stupid NPC talking bits, and you would have had a fantastic game on your hands. There certainly are elements here that show this game is a product of its time, but it's a product that I ultimately really enjoyed. It's a bold idea having Sonic transform, and I always love seeing developers look outside the box to see how they can reinvigorate a long-standing franchise. I think that risks mostly paid off, and the experience overall was good.